Oh my God, guys, I got a letter from the MTO. What do? I am getting audited on Monday. Today's Friday at 4 o'clock. So here's a letter that they sent out to us. They want us to have ready all the following things: all drivers' hours of service, qualifications and records, vehicle maintenance, insurance. Please make sure that you have available to us copies of all driver's license, abstracts, CVORs, contracts, applications, payroll records, training, bill of ladings, logbooks, time records, dispatch sheets, toll charges. What in the world am I supposed to do? Obviously, they didn't give me time to prepare for it since they're sending me this on Friday. Well, you know what? I'm gonna document every single part of this MTO audit, and I'm gonna show you what you need to do in order to pass one of these audits. Hopefully I pass. I wanted to share this experience with you guys. I think this is a really cool experience for those that pass. For those that fail, I'm sure it's not a wonderful and pleasant experience. I was able to document every step of this audit and this experience. So on Monday morning, yes, it actually happened. We got this letter on Friday. I'm going to share the letter with you guys. And we were told that on Monday morning, there's going to be an officer at our location. It was just randomly selected. You've been randomly selected. So on Monday morning, an officer showed up here. Officer was very, had their homework done on us already. So she knew exactly what she was coming in here for. This is the officer in these pictures. You can see that, by the fourth day of the audit, I got a little bit friendlier with her. She wasn't like that when she walked in here. She had her mission. I mean, she wanted to get all of our documents. She wanted to get all of the supporting documents. She already had a list of all the drivers that she was going after. She had a list of all of the trailers, all of the trucks. And the way they populate this list is they basically go back 6 months. They see which driver was in the scales, whether in Canada or in the US. They have all these records. They have the timestamp of this driver, this truck, this trailer was at this location at this time. And then they work backwards from there. So the last 10 drivers that, if they got a violation at the scale, if they had, minor infractions for their truck or for their trailer, she knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew which driver she was going after. And she also worked her way backwards, that she wanted to make sure that the hiring was done properly on them. She wanted to make sure that the internal policies are being followed. So for example, if you have an internal policy that all trucks are going through a 90-day inspection, well, you better be sure that, they're marking you on, and she's watching whether or not you do the 90-day inspection. Again, if things are done and are not documented, that means they're not done in their eyes. So thank God, we have everything documented over here. We were able to, she chose 10 drivers. She wouldn't let me know which ones. So when we were sitting down here at the boardroom, she basically selected them one by one. So she said a driver's name. She said, please give me his driver binder. I gave her the driver binder. Then she said, okay, I want all his e-logs. So I gave her access to all of his e-logs. She was well versed with the e-log systems. She knows exactly where to go. She knows if you are suppressing records. She knows if you're altering. I guess they train them and they're very well versed, and I don't think that companies would get away with any of these things, especially with this officer. She was unbelievable. She did a great job. And I feel much better that there's officers like this going out around and checking companies. So let's get to it. Let's see how well we did. We had a 5-day audit. Okay. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you the report card that we got, and you'll see for yourself how we did. The categories that they're scoring you on is number 1, vehicle profiles. The second thing that they look for, the second category that they score you, is detection, reporting, and repairs. The third thing is your records. The fourth thing they look at is if you have qualified drivers. The second thing is your conviction record. So each one is graded differently, and then at the end they populate a score for you. So when the officer walks into our office, we sit down at the boardroom, and she basically went through a list that she already had pre-populated for herself, and she asked us to bring out 10 driver binders, 10 truck binders, 10 records of all e-logs for drivers for the 10 that she had selected. And then she started her 10 trucks, 10 trailers, 10 drivers, and 10 drivers and their e-logs. So when she came into the boardroom, she already had a list of what she wanted. The first thing that she asked for is vehicle profiles. So she had asked us for 10 trucks that she already had listed, and where she got these 10 trucks were from our CVOR. So anybody who went into the scale and got a minor violation or a major violation, she already knew the truck numbers, she knew the driver that was on it, and she also knew what was wrong with the truck at the time. And basically what she wants to do is she wants to pinpoint these trucks at certain locations, what was wrong with them, and she wants to monitor what it is that you did as a company in order to fix it. And also she wants to know whether or not you follow your internal policies. Like for example, we here at ET Transport, every 90 days, all trucks have to go through an inspection, our own internal inspection. So what she wants to check is that every 90 days and that it's documented, and it has to be before the 90th day, because if it's on the 91st day, then you've kind of violated your own internal policy. So what she's looking for is whether or not you follow those policies. So we have an inspection here every 90 days on trucks, every 90 days on trailers, and now she's looking for the last 6 months, or she even goes back to the last year for these trucks. And she's looking if you did a 90-day inspection, and she's also looking for your annual inspections on these trucks. So she wants to make sure that the annual inspection is done before the year end of the last one. How did we do in that category? Well, I think 92.25% was a pretty good score. We couldn't have asked for anything more. The results I'm going to show you of the entire audit at the end, but that's just one category. The second category is reporting and repairs. So the repairs, I mean, it's how well you maintain records for your repairs. So ours is all digital, so she sees that she can go into a unit number. She did want us to be able to produce a printed copy for the trucks that she selected, and she wants to see the repairs that were done on it, both on trucks and trailers. But she started off with the trucks, and then she worked her way into the trailers. Now, don't forget that she's also very smart, and she knows the defects that were on these trailers at a specific time. So for example, let's say your trailer got pulled over into the scale and it had a minor defect on it. She wants to see that when the trailer came back into the yard, she wants to see a receipt that that defect was fixed. And that's how she grades you on it. The third thing that she gave us a score on was our record. So a total score out of 20% was the record keeping. Then she started going into the drivers and the driver files. And this is where, I mean, each driver binder, as you guys know, our record keeping of drivers, of violations, of internal violations, of e-logs, our driver binders for drug tests. There's so many, their contracts, their rate of pay. There's so many things that go into this driver binder. And what she did was she wanted to make sure that our driver binders are up to date and that they were hired properly. So when she wanted to make sure that every year we pull their CVR and their driver abstract. She wanted to see what kind of internal policies we have with drivers, and when these drivers get violations, what we do about it. She also went over our hiring criteria. So for example, we don't hire anybody here with more than 2 demerit points on their CVOR. So we went over all these, the drivers that she selected, their CVORs. I would say she already had her list of who she was going after. So she knows who was pulled over at the scales. She knows where they were. She wants to double check that, that there's no falsification of logs. And she wants to check what happens, what do we do as a company when a driver does something, a driver that goes over his hours. So she's well versed on our e-logs. She knew exactly where to go in our e-logs where, if she wants to make sure that you're not suppressing records, she wants to make sure that you're not altering logs. So we have a binder like this, and if any driver we get violations every single morning that driver A drove on personal conveyance, driver B did this, driver C did that, or this guy went over 2 minutes over the 11 hours. So she basically wants to see what we do about that. So where's the letters that drivers signed? For us, it's automatic. I mean, if a driver does a violation, we send a DocuSign, the driver signs their violation, and it goes into their driver binder. Another thing that these driver binders have is when they get pulled over at a scale and there's no violations found, you need to make sure that you have that receipt of that no violations found at a scale, whether it's in the US or in Canada. So she knew, certain drivers of where they got pulled over in the US, where they got pulled over in Canada, what their violations were, and she was able to pinpoint those drivers at certain times. And then she also took out their e-logs to make sure that it matches. Another thing that drivers do, for example, where she catches drivers, is that if a driver is driving and gets pulled over by a scale, well, if he didn't mark that on his e-logs, that 15-minute or that half an hour inspection or the 45-minute inspection, because the inspections have the actual time that the driver was at the scale, then she would bust the driver for falsification of logbooks, or she would give a ticket out in most cases. Now, she went over 10 driver binders, okay? And 10 drivers, she pinpointed them. It was a 5-day audit. She basically went through a magnifying glass through our company. So a lot of the stuff that, by the 4th day, I felt very, very comfortable with her because she just went through everything. And honestly, I was already happy because she was getting fed up by not finding any problems within our company. So great job for us. We obviously were doing what we were supposed to be doing. So I did put some hidden cameras when she gave us the results. I did ask her some questions. I knew that we had scored fairly well. I didn't know how well we scored. We had a great and interesting meeting with her at the end, and here's the recap of that meeting. It was about 50 minutes, but I shortened it down for you. I wanted you guys to see what she had to say. Let's do a couple of the highlights of what she had to say. So number one is the results. So ET Transport, we scored 92.35% on our audit. So this is unbelievable news. Now, I thought that, okay, maybe there's other companies that score this well. So one of the questions that I asked her was, how many trucking companies score this high? And the answer that I got from her, why don't you hear it for yourself?
And straight to the left of that, you can see your...
Very good.
Okay.
Nice.
Overall, you did very well.
It's considered very well.
92? Yes. That's considered very... That's it's a really high score for an audit. No, I'm not.
So out of 10 audits that you do, how many score in the 90s?
I think this is the first one. Most of the audits I do are in the 80s, or I've had some in the 70s. I've had fails that were in the 30s. So you're doing things the right way. So if you do get audited again, or if you call somebody else for a voluntary audit, which some companies do,
For sure.
and right now, based on the fact that you got a 90-some%, I wouldn't call anybody for another audit anytime soon.
So let me just repeat, if you didn't hear it properly, let me just repeat what she said. I'll play it one more time for you.
No, I'm not.
So out of 10 audits that you do, how many score in the 90s?
I think this is the first one. Most of the audits I do are in the 80s, or I've had some in the 70s. I've had fails that were in the 30s. So you're doing things the right way.
So I asked how many companies get such a high score, and she said that we were the only company that she's ever given this high of a score to. So that made me feel really, really good. So I didn't know how many companies score this high. She's obviously been doing this for about 30 years, and I was thrilled when I heard that we were one of the only companies that she's ever given such a high mark to. So that goes a long way. When you get an audit like this, I basically came up to our insurance company and said, here, now what do you have to say? Yeah, so definitely, it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed, my 5 days. I had to clear out my schedule. She didn't really care what I have going on. She said, don't worry, you just get me the records, I'll be here. But I wanted to be with her, so most of the 5 days, I cleared out my schedule. I was with her. I went through every single binder that she chose, every single truck that she chose. 95% of the time, the officers give out tickets at the end of the 5-day audit. So usually, she would find something like form and manner. Well, we got e-logs, you can't find that anymore. She would find some form of falsification going over 11 hours. There's so many violations that, they can find in an inspection or in an audit, especially with your equipment. If we didn't do the safety on time, then she would give us a ticket for that. The officer did not find anything in our books. She did make some remarks, of things that she would like us to improve, but she did not give us any tickets, and we scored very high, and it was a wonderful experience for me, and I really enjoyed it. For those of you that are going to get this letter from the MTO, only my recommendation is do not wait for this paper to come. Make sure that you have everything done properly. Make sure that the trucks are safetied on time, the trailers are safetied on time. If you have your own internal policies, make sure you follow them because they will ding you for it. There's nothing more rewarding than to come up to your insurance company and tell them, hey, here's my audit results. I scored 92.5. Show me one company that got that high, from all of your customers. So we're obviously doing something right, and you should be too. So, double check everything. Make sure your driver binders are up to date. Make sure all your monitoring devices, that you're actually monitoring. Remember that if you don't have it written down, it never happens. So all the talks that you're having with your drivers, disciplinary, if you are talking to drivers, if they are going over their hours and you don't have it documented, it never happens. So make sure anything that happens in your company that it gets documented. And you as drivers, you should know that if the company that you're working with is not documenting things properly, then 2 years down the road or 6 months down the road, when an MTO officer comes to check them, you can still get tickets for this. So for example, if you did a violation and then 4 months later your company got audited, and you falsified your logs 4 months ago and they didn't document it and they did something about it, you can get a ticket for that, even 4 months later. That's my word of advice. Keep your records up to date. Our number one goal is obviously to keep the road safe. I'm Ronen. I hope you enjoyed something from this video. I haven't seen a single video of somebody documenting their MTO audit. I hope you learned something from this. I was able to get some clips from our audit. And for those of you that, are wondering when this audit happened, it was back in 2018. I did save my pictures on my cell phone and I was able to share it with you guys. And I also made sure to record her with the results, that we got. So hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck to all of you.